Hey, this is Dad Smart, a podcast for homeschool dads. I'm Joshua. I'm a commercial film director in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm a homeschool dad.
I'm Jesse, a music producer in Nashville, and yep, I'm also a homeschool dad. Josh and I have known each other since college. We played music together, and now we're figuring out how to help our kids grow and learn outside the traditional school system.
We started having these long conversations when we would be catching up about how homeschool is going, what's working, what's not working, and what it means when you don't feel like a teacher.
And we realized that there are just not many voices out there speaking to people like us, to dads who are part of their kids' education at home.
So this podcast is that space. A place for homeschool dads, whether you're new to the game or you've been in it for a long time, to just hear real conversations about this journey.
And we are not curriculum experts or parenting gurus. We're just two dads sharing ideas, and hopefully it inspires you to be able to build an environment at home that works for your family too.
Yeah, we believe that education doesn't mean just pass or fail. It's about curiosity. It's about connection. And most of all, it's just about showing up.
So pull up a chair, wherever that might be, whether you're driving to work or home from work or you're mowing the lawn, and let's go on this journey together. Welcome to the Dad Smart podcast. Hope you enjoy the episode.
Well, hello there, Jesse.
Hey, Josh. Oh, your screen went all 90s intermission looking. It actually sounded kind of like something powered down, maybe. Did your mixer power down?
It did.
That's kind of what it sounded like.
Okay. Well, that's a good, real world test of something technical happening that
Yeah.
we have to mess with. Well,
Check.
I did want to ask, Jesse, just going into this idea of, a first little recording session here, our pilot. When thinking about pilot episodes for TV shows, I learned early on about this format of what makes a great pilot show is your main characters are dropped in and it's the end of their old life. So they're dropped into the scene somehow, right? But whatever they were doing or whatever they used to know is no longer it. So then it goes into part 2 of that, which is the start of a new life. So new characters, new context, new plot, new everything. So this is our new life. And then the third part is, okay, what's going to happen next? So you think of any TV pilot, that's kind of like the secret formula to it all. And I love
Coming from
that.
Coming from the filmmaker.
I just love that stuff. And, you think of, just name any show, but here's a throwback to an old show, like the show Lost. Here's a group of people who were normal life and then plane crash onto an island. Here's your new life. Then what next at the end of that episode? And then many, many, many seasons later, you still don't know what's next.
Yeah, and then every episode almost follows that structure too. Like, this is who they were, this is how they are now, and what's going to happen. Like, it kind of kept just regurgitating that every single episode.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's a never-ending pilot episode. But thinking about that, I can remember when I had that moment of I know that homeschooling feels right for our family. I grew up going to public school, gone all day. I didn't think anything was wrong with it. I think it was just fine, but I didn't know any other way for sure. But I remember before our kids were of age to go to school, I read through the book Wild and Free. And at that point, a lot of things kind of hit me that the kids don't need to be in a building for that long to learn the things that they need to learn. And I think that was coupled by because I had just come off of a job where we were filming some work where we were in a school and we were kind of shadowing a class all day. And I just remember at one point, it was a second grade class, feeling like this is a long day, and these kids have been here for a long time, and we're only halfway through. And we would be with them in art class or whatever, and we would film what we needed and be like, okay, we're good, we have what we needed, and we got to go and have a break.
Yeah.
But they were still there, and it was just like, wow, I forgot the structure of this, and it's so rigid, and
Yeah.
this is tough. And then when I read that book, I was like, yeah, this isn't how kids have to learn. It is a functional way of learning when both parents have to be away and they have to be at work and kids can't be there. So for people who have the opportunity to homeschool, or they could do that, like, what an opportunity to take it and try. Yeah. But then, so that was a huge motivator for me. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'd love to do that. So that was kind of like end of my old life of thinking that they were just going to go to school to, no, actually, maybe this would be better. And so starting that new life of what that's going to be, that was kind of the moment for me. I remember where I was reading the book and just having that moment. What about you? Do you remember when, for you, that you felt like, yeah, this feels right?
I mean, yeah, I was kind of similar. I mean, growing up, in Australia, my parents, and to their credit, I think they wanted us to have at least a piece of our faith as part of our learning, so that led them to put us in a private Christian school, which, I don't know, you don't think about things as a kid like, oh, that actually cost them money. They had to work harder to actually, it's not free. So we were in a private Christian school through 9th grade, and then moved to the States, and then jumped into American public school, which at the time I was obsessed with Dawson's Creek. And I was like, this is exactly the same. I'd never seen a yellow school bus before. I didn't know that bells actually rang in the building, and then the hallways just flooded with kids. Like, even in Australia, outside the classroom was outside. So I felt like we were outside playing all the time at recess, and you're not like in a building, in a room, in a building, so that in itself did feel different, but we still were at school all the time. And even now, being introspective as an adult, thinking of parenting our boys, like, most of my memories as a kid are at school, on the bus, on the train. I mean, we had to scooter to the train station, rode a train, then got on a bus, and then did it all in reverse to get home. So, I mean, that plus the time at school, like, we were at home a couple hours, And then my dad was out of town a few days a week as a flight attendant. My mum had a job, and, so she wouldn't get home till 6 or whatever, so, but that was normal. Elta, my wife, she was kind of between private Christian school, homeschool, and then did PSEO, like post-secondary, later in high school, like at a community college. So she didn't have the full-on, like, at home, I'm socially awkward type 90s homeschool experience, but that was normal for her, to not be in just a typical public scenario. So I think we didn't go into parenting thinking, maybe like you mentioned, like, thinking this whole time they'd be in school, and then realizing, maybe that's not right. So I think there was always a little piece of that was like, maybe we'll homeschool. Once I kind of came around to the idea that that doesn't mean I have socially awkward kids, then once I was kind of okay with it, then we started really thinking about it when Navy, our oldest, started getting to that age. And then just society and culture the way it is right now, and just a lot of the things that we're like, I don't really care for my kids to learn about that. Like, I think it's important for them to be aware of some of the touchy topics that are taught in schools, and I will tell my kids about that, and I'll teach them, but it's going to be through the lens of our family and what we think and how we're to love people. And I wanted to be the one to determine how that's kind of taught and spoke about. So it wasn't really a moment of like, oh man, we got to homeschool, whether it's out of fear or out of feeling empowered. I think it was just kind of a natural, like, the way we've built our life, just business-wise, and, like, neither of us are at a job 9 to 5. We work from home and run businesses, so that makes it possible for us to tag team it, which means between the two of us, we have basically the, like, one full-time job's worth of work time, and the rest is going to our boys. But so I think we at least were set up in a way that made it possible, which I know a lot of people would say I can't do that, which in people's current state, some, like, yeah, maybe that is true, but I think you can work toward building your life that way if you have foresight and think this is going to be important to us in 5 years. How do we do it? So it was more of a natural, slow thing for us. But when it came time, I mean, we're still just, I mean, Navy will be in first grade, so we did kindergarten this year very loosely, but he's reading and writing and knows how to play with his younger brother and all the things that you learn as a kindergartner, you know, and we know we need more structure moving forward, but that's kind of where we got to, and it makes sense for our family now, and maybe in a couple of years it won't, and it's okay if things shift or change, but I feel like just starting off this way makes more sense than just defaulting to what the culture has kind of deemed as normal and be like, okay, you're 5, peace out, see you at dinner time, you know, and that just didn't feel right for our family. So
Yeah. And
that's
I would
kind of
say,
how we got here, you know.
yeah, that's cool. You know, my wife Emily also grew up homeschooling, and then she did in high school, like, go to the public high school as well. But she kind of always felt that homeschooling was in the future for our kids, and I maybe was more on the fence about it. So, you know, we didn't really come together of both being on board for doing it. Maybe I guess I wasn't not on board. I just didn't know how I felt about it. I didn't, because my childhood was so different. You know, from the time I was 4, you know, all day was somewhere else, not home.
Yeah, I remember hearing Emily talk all about, like, the road trips they took as kids, you know, like, we're learning about American history, let's go and see Mount Rushmore, or, you know, those kind of learning experiences, which, like, you can do more of that when you have the freedom to do it, you know, and you're not just bound by school breaks, you know, or summer vacation.
Yeah, and I think once we had that moment of, like, knowing we wanted to, like, start this new life, start the homeschool journey, you know, it is very much, well, how does it even work with our schedules and stuff like that? And, like, with me, you know, I had flexibility with my work to be able to be involved, and Emily as well. So kind of like what you're talking about, a little bit of a tag team approach to different things, and that's still a thing to flow with. But we really embraced this idea of wanting to do homeschooling with our kids. And I love the last part about, like, a great pilot is, like, the what's next. And I don't know what's next. You know, like, every day, every week, every quarter, every year is what's next. And it's honestly like, that's the question to ask and have that discussion and talk with your kids, talk with your partner about, so what's next for how is this working? What do we want to change? You know, what do we want to go after? You know, what places do we want to visit? You know, it's
and you can't let yourself be crippled by the unknown if you don't have the answer of that. You know, like, what is next? You have to just be okay with, like, we'll figure it out if we don't know. And you've said it this way before, that it's really just about showing up. Like, as a dad, as a parent, showing up is the key. And if you don't have everything figured out, that's fine. But acknowledging that it's okay for that to be fine if you don't know. But the key is just showing up and being okay showing up every day as a dad, as a teacher, as a parent, because there's plenty of kids out there who don't have anyone showing up for them, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the what's next will figure itself out if we do that.
Yeah. And for me, like my what's next that happened immediately was, okay, so what are the state standards and what about curriculum? I had that little bit of a freak out. The system is so set up. How do we bring that into the home? And I don't even know what I don't know about what they have to learn and when and all those things. And I just went down that whole spiral,
Yeah.
and I found answers to that. And I think I needed to go down that a little bit, but then I learned that there's so many ways to do this and to do it well. And I've seen that kids are smart. They are all so smart. And as a teacher, you literally only have to be one page ahead of where they are, and you can teach anything, which is a lesson that I learned. And especially at these young ages, I'm just so proud of what they can do. And I don't feel like it's because of me or Emily that's doing it. It's just we've created this space for them to just grow, and it's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, I think I would say we would echo that, Alta and I, that our kids are growing and learning in spite of us at this season in our life. Like we've decided, yeah, we're going to homeschool, but have we had the structure that we know long term we need in our home for them? Absolutely not. Like we're running multiple businesses and have so many projects and renovating a house that we're not living in that's 40 minutes away, and all of these things that like life is busy, but we're still able to bring them along with us and be like, hey, I'm Navy, I got to go measure for cabinets at the house, like let's go, can you come with me? And like he knows how to read a tape measure and all of those kind of things. And so they're definitely that's been like a weight off of our shoulders, as we've realized if we just show up, like our kids are gonna learn, and if we just bring them along with us, metaphorically but also actually practically too, then like they are gonna keep learning in spite of us, in spite of our failures as teachers.
And I think for you and I, we've had these conversations, separately from this, recording them, and it just feels like, man, there's not a lot of our voices out there, like dad voices. I feel like I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, wow, that's so cool! You're here at the this convention, or you're doing this thing," or to have the involvement that I have is met with such like surprise sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess so. But I know that there's so many dads out there who are involved, even if they are working, but they come home and they want to know what they're doing and how do I find my place in this. And I think that everybody has a place in it for sure. And I think that our conversations and why we even want to do this is to have a space where we can like listen to ideas and talk about what's working, what's not working. I failed here and this is tough. And it's just the journey of what's next is like, oh, I tried this and this worked, or, this is cool. And showing how we can be dad smart through the years of education that our kids are about to go on. I think that there's just so much value to hearing others go through it. And it's so important because we're already talking about like, how are we incorporating technology into what we're doing with our kids? And so as a parent who's looking for what to do next, I'm looking for sources of people who have tried things, and that's enough proof to be like, okay, that's working or not working. Just some guidance that feels like it's from real people doing it and trying it, seeing what's working, not working.
Yeah, I don't think the idea of Dad Smart Podcast is just for dads who have the flexibility to be really involved in their kids' education. I think it's hopefully inspiring conversations to shift that mindset for dads to think, hey, regardless of my job situation, I am going to be involved in my kids' education, whether that's when I get home every night, or whether that's on Saturdays or Sundays, or whether that's me long-term trying to shift and structure my work life to allow me to have one day a week home with my kids or whatever. I don't think this shouldn't just be a throwaway podcast for dads who are like, well, I can't do that. I think the point is to shift dads' mindsets to say, no, you are part of your kid's education, whether you know it or not, because you are an influence in their life. And so maybe this inspires you as a dad to figure out, how can I be more intentional in the moments, whether a lot or little, that I have with my kids, because I know that I am contributing to that.
Yeah. And a word that I really love is just becoming a co-creator with mom, and traditionally, like, yeah, moms are leading the charge a lot of times at home in the homeschooling world, for sure. And this isn't to replace that or say anything other than there is a place for dad, and there should be a place for dad. And I've found in our family that coming in as a co-creator in that has brought so much value to our kids, into my relationship with my wife, as we go about doing this together in our own ways. Like I said, co-creator, it's like that is a beautiful way of doing it. I'm not trying to just pick up where she left off, and she's not trying to pick up where I leave off. We each have our ways of doing it, and our classrooms that we have set up, and we are both teachers for our children in our own way. And so, and whether you do that in the evenings or you do that in the weekends or whatever, it's like, how can you be dad smart whenever you are the teacher?
I love that.
That's it.
Yeah. And it's not just going to help your kids, it's going to help your marriage as well. Because I know too many families who the wife feels so overwhelmed because dad shows up after work and he's fun dad, and then messes up their routine a little bit, or whatever it is. There's tension because of the back and forth roles, but co-creating with your significant other in that benefits your kids, but it's also benefiting families and our marriages and stuff too. I think it's a really important piece of that. So,
yeah. Well, the last thing, thinking about this being a pilot and talking about pilot episodes and finding that spot in our lives, there's a show that once everything kind of like hit all the streaming platforms, like our shows from our childhood from the 90s and all of that came out, and you could rewatch them. So, there's one quote that from the pilot episode of a show, and the show is Boy Meets World. And I don't know if you know that one, but basically, in the episode, like, Corey, stays up late with his dad to watch the end of the World Series. Way late. So then the next day in school, he falls asleep during his test, and he fails his test. And so there's the whole, what are we going to do? Whatever, all these things. Anyway, at the end of it, there's this moment where Mr. Feeney, who's the neighbor and like the teacher, says this thing about how it's going to be okay. Like, this one test score doesn't really matter. But this was the quote, and it really, to me, it was like, ugh. And I was getting into the homeschooling at this point. It was like, this is everything. So here's the quote. Education is not about obscure facts and little test scores. Education is about the overall effect of years of slow absorption of concepts, philosophies, and approaches to problem solving. The whole process is so grand and all-encompassing that it really cannot be threatened by the occasional late-night no-hitter. And that was just
Love
like,
that.
It was just like, oh, like, I'm not going to screw this up.
Yeah.
No matter what we try, what curriculum we try, whatever, we take a day off or we go on vacation or we do a thing, like, that's not what education is about. It's not about test scores. It's not about pass-fail. It's this process of this long process that we're going to be on together. And if we're intentional about it and we're showing up, like, nothing is going to threaten this journey for them. And that was just like, oh, peace. Okay. I feel so much better about this. So that's my quote I love and I've saved and remember a lot.
I love that. I think that's how this episode needs to end, with that quote. Cue bumper music.